All right, let's let them in. Welcome, 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 everyone. The last after show of 2020 has begun. The last one.
That was a great episode again. Man, there's always those, little nuggets that you get out of these experiences.
I've always said that, and it's actually true of a keynote, that most people don't remember or won't remember more than 3 to 5 things from any given keynote or any given presentation ever. And that's just a fact. But if you can remember one thing, then, and by the way, if the thing you remember or the 2 things you remember are also the things that the keynoter wanted you to remember and take away, well, then mission accomplished. But sometimes we get so greedy, like we want to, you don't go to a buffet and just cram as much food in your mouth as possible, right?
You don't?
Oh, wait, I must be confused.
I mean, you do, but you then make sure no one's recording you doing it.
Yeah, but not before a keynote. See,
all right, you know what? I'll just shut up. You guys just...
Where were you going with that
look,
again?
Today's show, my notes from today's show.
I love it.
And
would you?
Melanie,
let's see. Let's show it again.
Would you take a picture and share them with me?
I will.
On
Instagram.
I'll do that. And I want to give you a reassurance, because here you are with a new book to promote, and we spend all but 2 minutes of this internet TV show talking about stuff other than your book.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, as a guy who's had 30 books to promote in my own life, I know that if you can get people excited about you as a thinker and human being with authenticity and genuineness, which you really did a great job of today,
yeah, for sure.
then we're just all going to go out and buy your book. I mean, it works in such a beautiful way. Whereas the people who go on a show and all they do, you can tell they're going to break out in hives unless they can pitch their book.
As I said in my
you
book.
want to do. Yeah, right. The last thing you want to do is buy their book. Yeah. Plus, you've given us other books to buy as well today. You're going to bankrupt my book fund. I've already ordered Invisible Women for my daughter and granddaughter, but I have to read it first, and stuff like that. So thank you for today.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. So I try show, don't tell is like the big journalism phrase that they teach us. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, I'd rather you decide you want to buy the book than me tell you to, because then it's my idea and you probably won't like it.
Listen to that, Joseph. Listen to that.
Hold on a second. I couldn't work out, was that an insult?
I will never pitch one of my books on an internet TV show. I will show maybe, but I won't tell.
There you go.
All right. I had to mute him. But here's my question. I wasn't sure if Tom was giving me a compliment, an insult, or a backhanded compliment, that the format of my show was actually good or bad. Was he saying really I should have promoted the book more?
No.
That was really beautiful on my part, wasn't it? I mean, you got to admire the sheer craftsmanship that went into the comment.
I knew you would. No, you go, Mel. I just knew he got so super excited when he realized you guys were neighbors.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say it's actually a credit to you, because one of the things I run into is I do a lot of interviews, podcasts and things like that. And sometimes I don't want to be that person, but those are the only questions I get. It's like, well, why did you write the book? And who is the book for? And I'd love to talk about those things, but people didn't come here to hear a pitch for the book. They came to learn. And so it's a credit to you, Joseph, that, you've created a structure and a conversational flow that makes it feel natural and not like an infomercial.
I didn't, by the way.
Come on, everybody.
By the way, I didn't even get to. You were so interesting that I didn't even get to the fun facts.
Oh yeah, I noticed
that you speak American Sign Language, and that you were a world-class javelin thrower when you were in high school. You see, I didn't even need to talk about silly fun facts and how bad I am with Photoshop, because you were that fascinating.
Yeah. And speaking of silly fun facts, now I don't know if you saw in the chat, but Joseph, you're an inadvertent genius. How you come up with Homer's book titles, The Idiot and the How Odd Is He? So, I mean, that's just like, that's a high point in a show that you just really can't surpass. No, so Joe Rogan gets the big bucks, but he doesn't have the genius humor like you.
By the way, now I know you so well from this experience that I know you really are just complimenting yourself at the moment and your wit and your sense of humor, because I saw your comment as well, which is, and I'm reading it. I love Joseph's creativity. Homer's great books, The Idiot and How Odd Is He? How we know Homer's last name Simpson. So touche to you. But now
Joe, can I say something to? Okay.
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I just wanted to say what a great show it was.
Yeah.
I mean, really. Typically, because I'm on the West Coast, it's 9:00 here when the show goes on. So I'm having my coffee, and I have to go in the bathroom and get ready if I want to do the after show. But what great substance, and everything that you said, Melanie, was really wonderful. And
Glad to hear it.
when you talked about being on podcast to pitch your book, right? That's the first thing I say to people is, if you're coming on my podcast to pitch your book, I don't want you on my podcast, right? Because I don't want that. I want to have a conversation. So that's awesome. I thought it was beautiful. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Melanie. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that, for your list of recommended books. I will. My promise to you is that I will reach out to every single one of those authors. You don't have to, but I will. And because I feel like it's actually been a real joy for me as I've thought about guest relations. There is no better recommendation for a future guest than a current guest or a past guest. And so now, because part of this, the thinking behind CoronaTV is 90 minutes of content, which I send you the links, the files. Wendy knows she's been on the show. Jan knows he's been on the show, and same with Tom, that you can use if that helps you with your own content marketing, etc. So now I am going to ask you to tell us about the book if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys would find value in me sharing more about it, I'm happy to. But we can also talk about other things.
Yeah, dude.
Whatever you want to do. As I said, it's your show, and truly. Part of my thinking is it's the same thing like investors invest in people. They don't invest in ideas. And a lot of founders struggle to realize that. They go, but the functionality, and they're like, no, they want to invest in someone that is open to, so whatever you want to do.
All right, so I'll share my little
more about it. I really do want to hear more about it because, I mean, Mel, you've given us so much great wisdom already today. Even your little coffee story about how in complex experiences, we often misunderstand what aspect of the experience is important to us. And so we change the wrong things or we preserve the wrong things. But how you found out, wait a minute, it's not the jolt of caffeine, it's the overall ritual of the experience, and that can be had without the caffeine. And that, to me, that's just such an metaphor for so much in our lives. So you were able to just kind of offhand us a piece of wisdom like that. We got to hear about the book that you actually worked on.
I'm disturbingly self-aware and reflective. I think I get lost in thought a lot. So I'm glad that you found some use out of that. But yeah, so the book is born out of, honestly, a very similar thing that I'm super passionate about. I hate when people say that they're not creative. It drives me absolutely insane. I think, all the studies show that we are all absolutely creative, that especially when we're young, we are uninhibited with the way we share ideas and the possibilities and the way we think. I mean, my favorite example is I used to believe that there were little men inside the ATM who ran around and, carried your money out to the slot and took your card and all those things. Who thinks of stuff like that? No, it turns out there's not. But no, so, we think so freely and we're conditioned to ignore that or discount it over time. And so every time I see someone or hear someone say, I'm not creative, or I'm not the creative type, or, that's for the creatives and the jeans and the Converse and that other department, I see a kid who got told no, or be quiet, or, something along those lines. And so I feel like it's a mission of mine to fix that. And so the book is born out of that. It's a system that I use to come up with content ideas. And, that's sort of the ideas content to promote your brand, to build your personal brand, promote your business, etc. It's a framework that says every content idea is really just made up of two things. There's the focus, it's about something, right? It has a sort of a perspective or a lens, maybe it's people or history or data. And then it has a format. It's the way we bring that content to life through audio, video, a map, a quiz, or something else. And so you understand both of those things. You know that you can focus on different things. You know that there are different ways to bring those stories to life. So if I give you a list of 10 of each that are familiar and some that are new, you end up with 100 possible combinations. There's 100 different ways you could tell any single story by using 10 different focuses and 10 different formats. And so it's really just trying to step by step say, like, if you want to activate your creativity, here's the proof. You know how to follow a system. Like, let's take a look at the different combinations and options that are available to you, and it becomes a lot easier. So that's sort of the gist of the book. And I know, Wendy, you asked if it's in audio. So it is in audio. It is currently in Audible Purgatory. So I have no clue when they will release it and make it available to you, but we have submitted it. It's recorded. It's just waiting for, I don't know, one of the tiny men inside of Amazon to press the approval button, I guess.
And they're very tiny.
They take a long time, turns out.
Well, because for some reason they stopped shoveling the highways, and now those trucks just can't get through. So we don't know why.
Right.
Well, what really happened is the studio that I was supposed to record in New York shut down with COVID, and so that process got delayed. And then we moved down here. I had to find a new studio and wait till they had safe studio time. They were only letting one person record per day to prevent any sort of cross-contamination. By the time I got a day to do that and get it recorded, it was, I think, August, I think is when I finally got a slot to be able to record it 2 days in a row.
Wow.
And then it's just been in production. We submitted, I think, mid-October, and we've just been waiting for whatever mysterious process actually releases it out into the world.
Melanie, I didn't think for a second, it never dawned on me that there were authors launching books at the exact moment when Amazon was like, well, we're just shipping essential products right now.
The first week of my book, if you tried to order it, it was a 6 to 8 week estimated delivery. Week
That's
one.
ridiculous. Yeah.
That's right. That was for all products. All products.
And I understood. It made sense to me. Like, I didn't want someone not getting their masks or their Clorox because somebody needed to get my book. I totally understood. But the marketer in me and all the projections I had made, there were a lot of spreadsheets that were not prepared for that reality.
And there's certain creativity you didn't want to see. Somebody who doesn't have toilet paper, but they've got this new paperback book, and they say, "Well,
that's right. I would prefer not. That's not on brand."
This problem is a lot bigger. It's to the extent that we rely so much on my favorite place, which is called Amazon. We rely so much on this one place for almost everything that when it does have to pivot and shift and do something different, that it can accommodate what you're used to. It affects everybody, and that is not a good thing.
No,
and it's also the line of what's an essential. Certainly my book doesn't count. Like, I understood the logic completely, but I was trying to order things for the baby where I was like, diapers are pretty essential to me. Like, wipes seem pretty important. Formula is kind of a big deal.
They were overwhelmed.
It was just nobody was prepared, right? And so it was definitely an exercise in pivoting.
And Melanie, I just purchased your book, and it's going to be as a companion to Ann Handley's "Everybody Write."
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
For my team, and I saw that Ann Handley wrote a testimonial for you.
Yeah.
What she said was so important, which was there's so many books out there on subjects like this, but too few as well written as yours, where in her eyes, where it gives you, like your title says, a framework for how to do it. Yeah. And what good is it just continually reading things if you're not going to apply them? Could you tell us the story of the Netflix Orange is Black? Because I'd like to know how that worked from your framework. Yeah.
So truthfully, that was the framework is a much more recent, innovation, I guess. I wasn't using this at the time, but it certainly fits into it. So The story with the Netflix thing, I was working at the New York Times. I was their first editor of branded content, which basically meant anytime a brand came to the New York Times and said, we want to reach your audience, it was my job to convince them to do that through content instead of through squares and rectangles. And so that was the mission. Netflix came to us. I had luckily worked with their agency team before when I worked at the Huffington Post, so I had some trust. And I convinced them to let us do something really journalistic with the content. We did an actual investigation into what it's like to be a woman in the American prison system, not on the show, not the characters, but the actual American prison system. So I did about 50 hours of reporting on the piece myself. We had a video team that did a 3-part mini documentary interviewing current and former inmates and prison reform workers. So we created this really in-depth multimedia piece, which I can, let me grab the link because that would probably be helpful. Great. So you could see that. Let's see, there we go. I need a shortcut for that link. Let me put this in here just so
actually
you need a bit if you like.
You need a bit.ly link for each of the shows that you talk about it on, so you know what
you can share a screen if you want, by the way.
Oh yeah, let me do that. Let me open this up here. So I'll walk through because I've got it open. That's probably easier. All right, so this is sort of the landing page for that piece. So you see there's sort of this parallax scroll animation here at the top. This was 2014, so this was a big deal. This design doesn't necessarily last, is not what we would see today, but so it's this long, it's this long form piece. I did the reporting for the piece. Here's that mini documentary, which I have learned not to play in, as a group. I think you may need to get the tissues and watch that one on your own because it's some very real heartbreaking stuff. We told stories of real women. So I interviewed current and former inmates. This one is one of the quotes that broke me, saying, when you incarcerate a woman, you incarcerate her whole family. Given the number of women that are primary caregivers for their children when they're kind of swept up in the periphery of a lot of these crimes. So we did these animations that you see here as well. Here's the second part of that mini documentary. There's a photo slideshow here. So this is the woman who said that quote that I just mentioned about when you incarcerate a woman, you incarcerate her whole family. She did 2.5 years for drug possession. As you see here, her children were put into foster care and adopted while she was in prison, and she hasn't seen her kids in 20 years. So those are the kind of stories that we were uncovering, the real stories. There's also audio clips you'll see on the side here, over on the side. You could listen to some of the interviews I did sort of in their own words. And then we have infographics as well, kind of showing that, look, when you look at the inmates, the vast majority of the staff in a women's prison are typically men. And for many of them, it's traumatizing that these are given the lives that they have led, that they have to be, for example, supervised, showered by a group of men, when they may have suffered a tremendous amount of abuse at someone's hand. It can be very traumatizing for some of them. And we talked, the best part of this whole project for me is, again, I wanted to become an expert in this. This was an invitation for me to learn about the correction system and what can be done. They talk about using trauma-informed language. So we had this little chart here. It's very simple to refer to someone as Ms. Smith, as it says here, instead of Smith, or, talking about their room versus their cell, talking about a wing versus the block, right? Talking about a safety check versus a shakedown. There's a lot of slight changes in the language they use that can change it from a traumatic experience to a reformative one. And so that was sort of the whole deal here. And you see there's, actual credits here at the bottom of all of us who worked on this piece. And then you get this nice little banner down here at the bottom. So when you look at the level of branding on this piece, obviously we have this banner that clicks out to the site. There's curated editorial content that was related to the topic of women in prison, so people could learn more. And then throughout the piece, at the very top here, you can see that hover state, right? The little gray box is showing up at the top there. Is that showing up for you? So this disclosure is present throughout. So no matter how deep you scroll, you can always see this bar here that includes, the explanation that the editorial staff did not create this. We've got the logos up here in the left corner. And then one little sneaky peek in here. Let me see if I can find her. This is Piper Kerman, who wrote the book that the series is based on. She is now a prison reform worker. So in a legitimate capacity, she was able to offer us her expertise. But yeah, so this piece ultimately was in the top 2% of all content published on the New York Times that year. It organically earned most emailed in our, the homepage module. My favorite part personally, David Carr, who was the media critic for the New York Times, a late media critic there, tweeted, "All brand journalism doesn't suck," with a link to my piece. So that's, as good as it gets from David. But, that was a big honor for us. And really our goal was just to try to create something real, try to create, model the journalism that all of us had in our background with a brand, and won us a number of awards. It was a really big coup for us, but really trying to focus on the people, focus on the history, focus on the data. There's a lot of data in that piece that backs up their experiences. And then telling that story through writing, through photos, through video, audio, and infographics as well.
Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. We've been talking in the after show on occasion about the transformation of books and the marketing of books. And in a sense, I mean, I looked at that project that you did as the culmination of all of the different aspects of, you got video in there, you've got the audio in there, you got the text in there, really tastefully put together, visually appealing. And boy, if we can't each, I mean, I think of your show, Joseph, with the content and the value that you have available, to be able to have a sort of a plan like that, to be able to post everything in a really crisp and innovative way, I think is be awesome.
It's worth
Just
a
need to
study
find
for
somebody to
sure.
pay for it.
I mean, that piece is outstanding, and it shows you that, that is native. I mean, that is what native should be. And you shouldn't have to use AI and automation. I mean, there's a way. I mean, it is curated, it is thoughtful, and it comes down to this idea, like we've heard this a few times, which is, don't tell me you're smart, be smart, right?
Yeah, right.
Don't tell me you're
tell.
like you're being honest, just be honest.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't, the best way to promote something is not to have to, I've always said this, like I've always been in awe of salespeople, because the greatest salespeople, you don't know you're being sold to.
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, they're almost always great storytellers.
That's true.
So there's that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Melanie, what struck me right away is when you were telling us the story of that, the site you just showed us, the piece you just showed us, it's completely consistent with what you were saying earlier about the need for system change, right? I mean, we talked about systems earlier with respect to the women. You can have it all, but the systems aren't in place. About race and racism, the systems need to be changed. And here there's a prison system, which is like a more obvious system, and yet the same thing. It's almost like the magnitude of human stupidity in not seeing what are actually fairly easy things to change if you just exerted a little intelligence and energy in these directions.
So
Tom, you sound like what I say to my husband all the time.
There's 2 books related to this that I'm reading now. I tend to go through a couple at the same time. So this one is, hold on, it's playing instead of opening. The New Human Rights Movement by Peter Joseph.
Yeah, don't know that. Okay.
So this is a good one. This one is actually talking about exactly what you just said, Tom, about the way these systems are all interconnected, how, education is also a prison problem, is also an economic problem, is also, how it's all interconnected. I'm not through it yet, but it's really good so far.
It's on Audible. It's on Audible. I only do Audible.
Yeah, me too. It's on Audible.
A book I've been showing people on the after show since I read it a few months ago. You may already know about it. It's called Humankind by Rutger Bregman. It's the best book I've ever seen to give us an optimistic view of human nature. And it's not a little book. I mean, look, you see but Rutger Bregman.
That's an 11-hour book.
Yeah, he's a Dutch. He's a Dutch writer, and he debunks so many of the most famous social psychology experiments of the past 50 to 75 years.
Yeah.
And the guy's the best researcher I've ever known. The book's a bestseller, as is his book, Utopia for Realists, which is very continuous with what you were just talking about, the new human rights movement.
Yeah.
How can we be optimistic that these things aren't with us forever? How can we be optimistic enough to give us the courage and energy to attempt the changes we need? Bregman is just brilliant as a journalist on these things, which I think is another connection you would love. He does the hard work. Everybody else quotes everybody else. On the Stanford experiment, this experiment, he doesn't. He goes back and he reads the lab results, reads the records, reads the journal, and he digs and he says, look, so much of what we've been told that we have to take for granted is just false. We have these open fields of running for us, these open fields of possibility that we didn't think we had with respect to the kinds of changes we want to see in the world. So that's my little soapbox for today.
I love it.
Joseph will be thrilled. It's not one of my books I'm so excited about. So, right, Joseph?
I'm also sharing this one too. I didn't mention it before, but if you haven't read The Anatomy of Peace, it's not a new book. The Anatomy of Peace, Resolving the Heart of Conflict by the Arbinger Institute. This one, it starts off feeling like fiction, like it's based on some fiction, like there's characters, but you learn a good lesson about communication and empathy and understanding other people. So it was a really good one.
So, but I remember that. So good, thanks.
You guys, have you read this one? I'm listening to this now, and I actually bought it. Red Teaming.
Red Teaming, don't know that. What's that about?
Oh my God, I love this book. It's like the 10th man. You know, Joe, I think you mentioned it once.
I love that.
It's all about the 10th man, about being the contrarian. The Israeli army used it during the Pearl War, and and how you implement it into business. It's fascinating. I love it.
I love that.
Good.
It's a good one.
Cool. See, this is one of the benefits of the after show, right?
Yeah, seriously.
I'm telling you, we are the inner cabal. So, okay, so listen, we're almost at 30.
Yeah.
I wanted to say a few things to Melanie, first of all, which is I'm going to reach out to your entire book list when I have a chance, try and get them on the show. If you want to join me on my quest, please do. And my offer to you is, if you like, you can come back and jump on those episodes with me. Kind of a cool experience. And actually, I had Tom do that for the very first time with Brian Murarescu, who wrote The Immortality Key. It just created this amazing dynamic and just brought a new dimension to the show. I also wanted to say that I'll send you an email with all the links and the files and everything. But one of the things that's become one of the things that I love most about this year and the journey is that every Friday, that community show you saw is just my previous guest. So I realized like your guest number, I think, what was it?
181.
So with 181 guests, I mean, I've been very fortunate to have many previous ones come back every day, some less than others. When I say appreciate them, I'm just kidding, Tom. But like every day on this after show. But I realized what's the point? Not what's the point, but these conversations, these moments are so meaningful, and 90 minutes isn't enough to spend with them.
Yeah.
They have so much amazing insight. So, if you ever want to come back on one of these Fridays as well, you're very, very welcome to be part of this expanding family, because I've gone beyond even calling it a community now. And now I just refer to it as family.
Yeah. That's what we feel like.
I love it.
It's crazy because, Melanie, I've told this story many times, but I came in July. I was a guest in July, and he said, why don't you come back? And I think I've been here almost every day since. So, until I find something better to do, you'll always see me.
And then he started writing the notes and putting them in Dropbox every day. And I still haven't figured out. I've got all these, talk about content strategy. I've got all these compartments. I've got I'd like to put out a book of all my seated soliloquies. Every day I'm writing 350 to 400 words every day. I'd like to, put out all the Corona questions. There's just so many compartments of content, but one of them are Tom's magnificent notes. And also one day, they will pick apart his brain and they will understand when he used green and when he used red and when he had 1 star, and when he boxed it, and when he came out with a highlighter. Can you show us today's notes?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've got all kinds of things. I got stars in the margin. I got a lot of stars in the margin next to that. I've got all kinds of things. I got the blue margin around it. Very few, I think 3 people have gotten the blue margin. So, there's great significance. One day it'll be like the people who are unearthing Gilgamesh in bits and pieces under Ashurbanipal. What they'll say, oh, she got the blue line.
I'm going to put that on my resume, I think.
I got the blue frame.
Yeah.
Like, there are some people that talk about red threads. I talk about blue frames.
Blue frame.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. This is the one show that, even though we discussed so many things that are systemically wrong and need to be fixed, I left with this tremendous sense of hope, which is, as you said, the first part of any solution is acknowledging that there is a problem. And I think, to me, it was, with people like you advocating, we are in good shape indeed.
Well, and I think, just coming back to the journalism thing, one of the things they taught us early on is that the biggest danger of faulty journalism is thinking you know more than you do. It's not my job to know everything. It's my job to find the people who know everything and bring their data, their opinions, their experience into it. And so, acknowledging there's a problem and that I don't know how to solve it. So who are the people who are working on these problems, who are doing doing the research, who are digging into these things, and how can I learn from their expertise? So I'm all about, I don't know, but I'll find out. It's like my MO.
Back to curiosity again. Right?
Yeah.
And I've got the book, Ian Leslie, Curious. That's the best book on curiosity I've ever seen. It's right over there looking at me. And by the way, Jan Zlotnick, who's on our after show today, just published a book, 23 Questions I Wish I'd Asked My Mom and Dad. And again, it's about asking the right questions. It's about being curious enough to probe, right? So thank you for the way you brought that embodied curiosity to us today. It was a blessing, a gift to all of us.
Oh, thank you. I love that.
Well, everybody, for some, let me wish you all a Happy New Year. For some that will be on the show tomorrow night, for others that will be calling in or not calling. I know Tom, if I'd done it 10 a.m. to 12 noon, it would have been better for your, you need your beauty sleep. I get that. But
just look at me,
But let me just say, 2020, what a year. But if not for this pandemic, I would never have met you guys. So, or at least connected with you. So what a pleasure that's been.
Thank you.
Just a quick reminder to folks if you want, there are so many resources in the chat today. I just remind you to click on that extended menu button there and save the chat, and then you'll have the links.
You can do that?
Yeah.
Well, actually, when I download the files, it will download all the text files. So I'll be happy to send that to you.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
That's good.
Well,
thanks,
great
everybody.
episode. Another great show.
Thanks, Melanie.
Wow.
Reporting live from wherever Jan is going to be hanging out tomorrow night. I can imagine in a bush, which is, I've seen someone who is not socially distancing. I will report back in 5 minutes.